In the Great War, battles were fought with bayonets, stationary machine guns, bolt-action rifles, which are not to be confused with the older muzzle-loaded rifle, and long-range artillery fire. These machine guns are the main reason that warfare became entrenched, because charging headlong at the enemy was no longer possible, with each machine gun capable of firing 400 rounds per minute, although operators typically fired in short bursts to keep the weapon from overheating. This meant that the defensive side of the battle had the upper hand and the attackers needed to take out the heavy machine guns before they could penetrate the enemy trench. Each conquered trench was a meaningful victory as it meant more area brought under the control of the attacker. This is the first submachine gun used in combat, the MP-18. The MP-18 was brought into World War I by the German army and was primarily used by the Sturmtruppen, Germany's specialized trench fighting companies. It was an excellent weapon for its intended use. Once a Stormtrooping squad infiltrated the enemy trench, they could mow down the enemy soldiers before taking excessive casualties from the enemy's inferior bolt-action rifles. The MP-18 was the more effective replacement of atrocities like the flamethrower and poison gas, which were early additions to the anti-trench arsenal of World War I. Gas became ineffective following its first uses, as its success was because neither side knew much about it. While flamethrowers were heavy and they needed to be within a fairly close range for their use, the MP-18 set the standard for handheld war weapons at the time, with most developed countries successfully creating their own submachine guns following World War I. This is the legacy of assault rifles. They were invented to destroy human life on a massive scale as quickly as possible. This is exactly how they are still used, except that the assault rifle is the minimum of warfare today. And that is why, as I will now explain, the Second Amendment is an archaic right that needs to be reevaluated. Its original intention was so that the citizenry had the capability to rise up against a tyrannical government. Unfortunately, today, even a citizenry with the right to bear arms and AR-15s could not do anything to fight against the government we have now, over 200 years after the Second Amendment was enacted. The citizen militia would need tanks, drones, Harriers, and battleships. War is not fought the way it once was. Each time another mass shooting reaches prime time in the media, gun purchases rise. This results from a combination of gun owners buying more and non-gun owners buying because they fear for their safety in an armed country. If the United States continues on its course of national armament, we place ourselves in an arm race against our fellow citizens. Because the citizen militia couldn't stand its ground against our nation's military capability, the Second Amendment is not applicable in America today. Today, the Second Amendment supports only that each citizen is armed. Armed against who? One another. Join me in listening to a portion of Colorado Senator Mike Johnson's speech on the Senate floor in 2013.
The hollow men have no such burden. Think of the man that walked into Theater 9 or into Sandy Hook. Every single ounce of his being is filled with hate. Every pocket is filled with ammo, every shoulder is filled with a gun, every hand is filled with another one. And unless we plan to put down all of the rest of the things we value to compete with him, unless we plan to hollow ourselves out so much that we also are that empty and have nothing else to carry, we will never walk into that battle as prepared as he is.
We now find ourselves in an arms race defended by the Second Amendment. The truth is, simply by owning a gun, your risk of dying to a gun increases. This is an arms race that the average citizen will never win. This is an arms race that our country's law enforcement will never win. Because even if we ensure that every man and woman in America has an AR-15, the hollow men will always take us by surprise. We live in America and we take pride in our safety in our country, the hegemon of the world. Yet when we believe that a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun, we commit ourselves to arms from dawn till dusk. Just look around. High school students around the country are protesting for gun regulations because they fear for their lives. Someone has to do something. We have to do something. We can contact our representatives, we can make our voices heard on social media, and we can participate in peaceful protest. We can make a difference. The United States needs us now more than ever. Are you with me?